This will be how to tighten a threadless bicycle headset. All you'll need is a multi-tool. You will either have a 4, 5, or 6 millimeter, and possibly even a combination of those, hex key on your stem. Luckily, this is one of the easier parts on a bike to actually adjust. There's a top cap here. This is what applies tension and sort of pre-tensions the bearings. And then these two stem bolts on either side. Sometimes they're both heads are on one side. Sometimes they're flip-flopped, like on this one. All you want to do is loosen your stem bolts. They don't have to be crazy loose, just until the bolt is moving freely. That's probably like 1 full turn or so. That's going to release the clamping force holding the stem and the headset assembly on the steer shaft. Then you'll loosen your top clamp. Doesn't have to be very loose, just enough to rotate. Now your headset, if you were to grab your front brake and push the bike back and forth, you'd feel a clicking. And that clicking is slop in the joint here. And down here there's a set of bearings in a race here, and a set of bearings on a racing cone here, or possibly cartridge bearings. Now you'll also notice that your handlebars can be twisted. This is also how you would adjust your handlebars, but you may not want to loosen this top cap quite as much. Now to tighten the headset, you'll tighten this pre-tensioner cap. I'll go ahead and show you what's underneath here. Underneath is this star insert. This is like a one-way fitting. It's threaded on the inside, and it has these arms that come out and grab the inside of the steer tube. This is an 1 1/8" steer tube. It's one of the most common sizes that you'll see. More modern bikes they terminate in the 1 1/8", but they may have a larger diameter at the bottom. That's called a tapered steer tube. Those provide a little bit more stiffness for typically, originally, I think it evolved in gravel bikes and cyclocross. It's in mountain bikes now, and even some road bikes. Okay, so to tighten your headset, you're going to tighten the tensioner cap, and it's not firm. You don't want to be wrenching. You just want to tighten it until kind of everything binds. Then what you can do is you can grab your front brake again and rock the bike back and forth and feel if there's any clicking. I can still feel a little bit of clicking. You can also rotate your handlebars so that the wheel is completely sideways and push the bike back and forth, and that puts like a direct, that's also with your brakes locked, a direct perpendicular flex to the headset. And because the brakes aren't so much involved, you may be excluding other clicking that might be happening in your brakes, and hopefully your hub's not clicking, but you should be able to tell whether it's happening there or not. I will tighten this just a tiny bit more. That's barely, I mean, I could, with thumb and pinky, I can continue to turn that quite a bit. So it's light. You're really just pressing down on some small bearings. You're really just pulling everything together. And then you'll line up your steering. I like to line the wheel up with the frame first, and then kind of center myself over the handlebars and line up 2 common points on the handlebars with 2 common points on the fork. So I might roll back to the back here. So I line up on the edge of the fork. You can see you need to rotate right. I'm a little bit OCD about this because you do end up staring at this constantly when you're riding. So that looks just about perfect. Good enough for this. And then you do this under a little bit of tension so that nothing kind of can flop around. Then you'll go back and tighten up your stem bolts. You kind of want to work these in parallel, so go in small steps back and forth. If it is a carbon steer tube, I can highly recommend getting a torque meter, because on round objects like that, if you apply too much torque on these bolts, you will crack that steer tube. In this case, it's an aluminum steer tube. I really don't have to care. The only concern is shearing the bolt or threads in there, and that takes quite a bit of force. So there will be a rating on your stem. This is 6 Newton meters. You can also get what are called torque keys. They will click once you reach a certain amount and stop the rotation. I kind of go by experience. If anything, I'm probably going a little bit tighter than I should, but I've never had any problems. Again, this is on these stem bolts. You don't want to go crazy tight. It is significantly tighter than this top cap, of course, but it's more like a approaching firm. But I could probably finger and pinky. It'd be really hard to get any more torque out of that. Then come back up to your top cap, and you want to release the tension that you applied, and then simply just seat the bolt so that nothing slips around. But this top cap does not maintain tension while you ride. It is the binding of this clamp on the steer tube. And then once you're all done, double check your work, grabbing your brake and rocking your headset back and forth. Hope this helps.